Bay County voters will be going to the polls on November the 6th to decide whether to extend the half-cent sales tax for schools. The purpose of tonight's forum is to give the voters a better informed choice in making their vote count.
Before we knew we had issues, we had the crumbling infrastructure, we had schools that really had been only maintained, not renovated, nothing major done, and we were pretty much in dire straits. And those of you who were here 10 years ago, and there are many of us who were, understand that very clearly. It is an equitable tax. It does not fall on the backs of property owners, but anyone who comes into Bay County and leaves some money perhaps will help our school system, which to me is a very smart thing. We're asking the citizens to vote yes on this referendum. The fact that we're coming to the citizens and that we must have their approval to levy this tax is a part of what makes our country great. And I am pleased to be here tonight to speak to you in its favor. Thriving schools make vibrant communities. Thriving schools drive the economic potential of an area. Thriving schools provide families a solid fabric of support and activity that sustains and strengthens the family unit. What reasonable individual can think that our children are not worth it, that our children are too expensive, that our children don't deserve the very best in educational facilities? Reason does not beg the question and turn to innuendo and negativity. Reason does not look at surface level and draw conclusions that are wrong. Reason does not reduce the entire educational system to snorts and sound bites. I know Bay County understands what the request for renewal of the half penny means to all of us, and I know reason will prevail in making the right decision for the benefit of our children. I'm asking you to please vote yes on November 6th.
10 years ago, I voted for the half-cent sales tax. I thought it was deplorable that those charged with the stewardship of our public properties had allowed them to get to be what they were, but the reality, it was simply that they were that, and make no mistake about that. But it has changed, has it not, in 2007. One of the things that has changed is that the school board's budget since 2001 has increased 48%. More importantly, their ad valorem tax take has increased by a little over $63 million, or 111%. I thought that I would try to focus my presentation on not what it was spent on, not how well it was spent, not how poorly it was spent, but merely the fact is, what about that $13 million? Where does that $13 million come from? At the current tax rate, millage rate for the school board, 6.657. That means that next year, the school board will take in $11,959,473 more than they did this year, just in the condominiums. Pier Park, 900,000 square foot of commercial. Using those same numbers, that is approximately, another million. So between 2007 and 2012, reasonably, if nothing is built in this county except what's built on the beach, the school board stands to take $29,198,958. So do we need another $13 million at the half cent with this on the horizon? Or can we actually not have an increase in our ad valorem tax for the school board? Will it go down? One or the other. One or the other, if you will.
If Bay District schools are spending too much per student, what would you suggest would be an adequate amount of dollars to spend for a child's education?
What I have learned is, and the answer to the question is, what is going to be adequate is every dime that they can get. It always has been spent in that manner. It always will be.
And our next question is directed for Ms. Littleton. If the half-cent sales tax fails, what will be the district's first action?
There are actually three alternatives for what Bay County is looking at. One is, of course, to pass the sales tax, and we'll continue the renovation that we have continued over the last 10 years. One is obviously the millage rate. If we wanted to continue that process, we would have to look at that. And the third is to do nothing and simply take no action. Leave the millage rate low, not have the half-cent sales tax. I'm sure that that's what Mr. Sullivan would advocate. I don't think that's good for children.
What is the source of your information as to irresponsible spending, as for the Oversight Committee's lack of scrutiny to the spending of the sales tax monies?
The members of the Citizens Oversight Committee have no authority over project selection. So, if you are approving what has been spent, I think that is one thing. If you are involved in the process of deciding what has been spent, I had a while back when it first originated, there apparently were some questions asked, and those people are no longer with that.
Would the school board consider having an independent financial audit performed to determine for the taxpayers whether the current level of funding is being spent in the most financially responsible manner?
We have audits. We're required to have audits. That's not anything unusual for us at all.
Is there any amount that will satisfy the school board's needs, or will this become a continuous compounding requirement for our children's children?
One would imagine, based on the history, that if we would take Ms. Littleton's comments, that no matter how much ad valorem taxes were collected in Bay County, that we never got any more money because it all went to the state and it never came away. I don't see how the half cent could possibly ever go away.
The only needs that the school system has is to keep the facilities upgraded. But of all of those parts of the budget, the money that the school board spends is the revenue. There are other monies. For example, we have sitting in a fund, we have money to build the 2 new schools. That's part of that $375 million. We won't be spending that money on anything except building the 2 new schools. We have money that is carryover with projects that were in last year's budget and are carried over. We don't control a bunch of that money. The state tells us what we do with it. So we are not awash, even though this number is large. It is not money that we can just willy-nilly spend on anything. It is money that's obligated by the state requirements. So please make sure that you understand that. That's a very important distinction. Today it is $261 billion. It is up $77 million. That is true. Okay, you can see that is an increase. Now, what you need to know is why that increase. First of all, class size reduction. Remember, Alan Vance told us when we passed class size reduction it was going to cost us. Well, here it is. In this year, 2007, 2008, it's costing us $29 million. Our energy costs are up 50%. Our insurance costs are up 50%. For this year alone, that's another $8 million. When you take all of that away, the actual increase in the budget from 2002 to now is $40 million in spendable money for the school system. If you divide that out, it's about 4% a year.
At the end of the day, the people in here, the taxpayers in this county, are paying in 2006, paid $191,860,000. So we have some issues and obligations that we have to bear up with. We feel the pain, and we're not awash in funds either.
I think it's been very informative. Do you agree? And it's reflected by the number of questions that we did not have an opportunity to ask this evening, and the number of questions that came in through the emails. It's obvious that there's a great deal of interest in this particular issue.